There is a plant growing in the cracks of your sidewalk right now that contains more omega-3 fatty acids than fish oil supplements. It has 7 times more beta-carotene than carrots, 6 times more vitamin E than spinach, and 14 times more antioxidants than blueberries. The ancient Greeks cultivated it in gardens. Hippocrates used it as medicine. Egyptians harvested it from the banks of the Nile. Native Americans across the continent ate it as a staple vegetable. Then, in 1926, the USDA classified it as a noxious weed. States began passing laws prohibiting its sale as food. Agricultural extension offices distributed free pamphlets teaching people how to poison it out of existence. Hardware stores stocked entire aisles of chemicals designed to kill it. And we spent the next century stepping on, spraying, and pulling out one of the most nutritious vegetables on earth, convinced it was garbage, while paying $4.99 a pound for romaine lettuce that has 1/100th the nutrition. This is the story of purslane, the plant that refuses to die, and the system that cannot afford to let you know what it is. Welcome to Garden With You. Stay till the end as we expose the weed that won. The archive opens. 2500 BC, ancient Egypt, the Nile Delta. Archaeologists excavating workers' quarters near the pyramids found something in the food storage areas that changed our understanding of ancient diets. Seeds. Thousands of them. Portulaca oleracea, purslane. But these weren't wild seeds blown in by the wind. They were stored deliberately, in ceramic jars, alongside wheat, barley, and lentils. Food storage. Intentional cultivation. Carbon dating placed them at 2500 BC, over 4,500 years ago. The same plant we spray with Roundup was feeding the people who built the pyramids. The Greeks called it androchne. They didn't just eat it, they wrote about it. Theophrastus, the father of botany, documented its cultivation in 300 BC. Hippocrates listed it in his Materia Medica as medicine for inflammation, digestive issues, and wound healing. The Romans brought it across Europe. Pliny the Elder wrote that purslane worn as an amulet would protect against evil. But more practically, Roman soldiers carried it on campaigns. It traveled well, grew anywhere, and provided nutrition when supply lines failed. By the Middle Ages, purslane was cultivated in monastery gardens across Europe, alongside vegetables we still recognize: lettuce, parsley, chard. It wasn't wild. It wasn't a weed. It was a crop. Native Americans were cultivating it long before Europeans arrived. Archaeological evidence shows purslane seeds in storage contexts across the Southwest, dating back 2,000 years. The Tohono O'odham, Navajo, and Apache all had names for it. They didn't forage it occasionally. They managed it deliberately. When European colonists arrived in America, they found purslane already growing in indigenous gardens. And they recognized it immediately because they'd been eating it for thousands of years back. Home. Colonial records show purslane sold in American markets through the 1800s. It was a common pot herb, eaten like spinach, used in salads, and pickled for winter. There are recipes for purslane soup in cookbooks from the 1700s. For 4,500 years, across every continent except Antarctica, purslane was food. Then everything changed. The transformation, how food becomes a weed. The shift didn't happen overnight. It happened in phases, driven by economics, agriculture, and cultural amnesia. Phase 1. Industrial monoculture, 1900-1930. As American agriculture industrialized in the early 1900s, farms shifted from diverse crops to monoculture. Corn, wheat, soybeans, cash crops that could be mechanized, standardized, commodified. Purslane didn't fit. It sprawls instead of growing upright. It reseeds constantly. It's nearly impossible to mechanize harvest. For industrial agriculture, purslane was inefficient, but it also had a bigger problem. It competed with cash crops. Purslane grows faster than almost anything. Drop a seed in soil, and within weeks, you have a spreading mat. Plant corn, and purslane colonizes the bare ground between rows. For farmers growing monoculture corn, purslane wasn't food anymore. It was a competition. Phase 2. Chemical agriculture, 1930–1960. In the 1940s, herbicides became widely available. 2,4-D, developed during WI2 as chemical warfare research, was repackaged for agriculture. Suddenly, farmers could spray fields and kill everything except their cash crop, but only if they were convinced that everything else was bad. The USDA and agricultural extension offices began classification systems. Desirable plants versus noxious weeds. Purslane went on the noxious weed list in 1926, not because it was dangerous, not because it harmed crops in any measurable way, but because it grew where it wasn't wanted. Language matters. Once something is classified as a noxious weed, it becomes legal to regulate, ban, and eradicate. Several states made it illegal to sell purslane as food. Not illegal to eat, illegal to sell. Hardware stores started selling weed killer products with purslane pictured on the label. Agricultural extension offices published pamphlets, eradicating purslane from your garden. Free advice on destroying food. Phase 3. Suburban lawns, 1950–1980. Post-war suburbanization created millions of new lawns. The perfect lawn ideology, grass uniform and green, zero weeds, became a status symbol. Chemical companies saw an opportunity. Purslane thrives in disturbed soil. Every new suburban development created perfect conditions. Within weeks of construction, purslane would colonize bare patches. Homeowners panicked. Lawn care companies sold them solutions. Selective herbicides, pre-emergent chemicals, and quarterly treatments. Entire businesses are built on killing plants that were free food. By 1970, the average American homeowner was spending $80 annually on lawn chemicals. By 2000, that number reached $400. Today, the lawn care industry is worth $99 billion globally. Purslane, impossible to kill completely, became the poster child for persistent weeds. The more you spray, the more it comes back, perfect for selling perpetual chemical treatments. Phase 4. Cultural amnesia, 1970–2000. By the 1980s, an entire generation had grown up being taught that purslane was garbage. Grandparents who remembered eating it in the Depression were dying. Immigrant communities who still ate it kept the knowledge within their own cultural enclaves. English-language gardening books stopped mentioning it as food. When purslane appeared in books at all, it was in the pest identification section. The knowledge was erased through omission, not banned, not destroyed, simply not passed down. Within 2 generations, Americans forgot that the plant in their sidewalk cracks was the same vegetable their great-grandparents paid money for at markets. What they erased. Let me tell you what purslane contains, because the numbers are staggering. Omega-3 fatty acids, 400 mg per 100 grams of fresh leaves. That's more than any other leafy green on Earth. More than spinach, kale, chard, and arugula combined. In fact, purslane contains more omega-3s than some fish. The specific type is alpha-linolenic acid, ALA, the plant-based omega-3 that your body converts to EPA and DHA. The omega-3s are sold in $30 supplements. Beta-carotene, 1.320 mcg per 100 gram, 7 times more than carrots. Carrots are famous for beta-carotene. Purslane destroys them. Vitamin E, 12.2 milliliters per 100 gram, 6 times more than spinach. Vitamin E is sold in supplements for skin health, immune function, and as an antioxidant. Purslane gives you more than most supplements. Vitamin C, 21 milligrams per 100 gram. Magnesium, 68 milligrams per 100 gram. Potassium, 494 milligrams per 100 gram. Calcium, 65 milligrams per 100 gram. But here's the compound that changes everything. Betalain pigments. Betalains are rare in the plant kingdom. They only occur in a handful of species, mostly cacti, beets, and purslane. These compounds are powerful antioxidants and anti-inflammatory agents and have been studied for cancer prevention. A 2014 study published in the Journal of Advanced Research found that purslane has 14 times more antioxidant activity than blueberries. Not comparable to, 14 times more. The Tohono O'odham in Arizona never needed laboratories to know this. They called it ibdagi. They ate it fresh, dried it for winter, and fed it to people recovering from illness. Empirical knowledge over thousands of years. Chinese medicine has used purslane, maqixian, for over 2,000 years to reduce inflammation, clear heat, and treat infections. It's still sold in traditional medicine shops today. In Mexico, it's verdolagas. You can buy it in every mercado. Not in the wild edibles section, in the vegetables section, fresh, by the bunch, next to cilantro. In Greece, they call it glystrida. Greek salad often contains purslane instead of lettuce. It's not peasant food, it's traditional food, premium food. While Americans spray it, the rest of the world eats it. The knowledge was never lost globally, only in the cultures that industrialized food production to the point where free vegetables became incompatible with profit. Why it had to become a weed. Here's what you cannot do with purslane. You cannot control its seeds. Each plant produces 50,000 to 240,000 seeds. Those seeds remain viable in soil for up to 40 years. Plant purslane once, and it reseeds itself indefinitely. No annual seed purchases, no patented genetics, no corporate dependence. You cannot make it dependent on inputs. Purslane grows in terrible soil. It survives on minimal water. It tolerates extreme heat, drought, and neglect. It doesn't need fertilizer. It doesn't need pesticides. Nothing wants to eat it because of its high oxalic acid content. It asks for nothing. You cannot mechanize it efficiently. It sprawls, reseeds constantly, and regrows from fragments. Cut it, and every piece that touches soil roots. Pull it, and you spread it. Industrial agriculture requires plants that cooperate with machinery. Purslane refuses. You cannot replace it with something more profitable. Nutritionally, purslane beats nearly every vegetable sold in grocery stores. If people knew they could get more omega-3s, more antioxidants, more vitamins from a plant growing in their driveway than from $30 supplements and 5-pound greens, why would they buy those products? In a food system built on scarcity, dependence, and annual sales, purslane represents the opposite: abundance, independence, and permanence. The leafy greens industry is worth $95 billion annually. The omega-3 supplement market is worth $8.1 billion. The lawn care industry is worth $99 billion. All of them depend on people not knowing that purslane exists. So the plant became a weed, not through biology, through economics, through language, through the deliberate erasure of knowledge that threatened profitable ignorance. The plant that cannot be killed. But here's the beautiful irony. They failed. Purslane is nearly indestructible. Pull it, and the fragments root. Spray it with herbicide, and seeds in the soil wait 40 years for the chemicals to degrade, then germinate. Pave over it, and it grows through cracks. There are documented cases of purslane surviving in soil frozen for 18 months. It survives temperatures from 15 degrees Celsius to 45 degrees Celsius. It grows in soil pH from 5.5 to 8.0. It tolerates salinity that kills most vegetables. Cut a purslane plant into pieces and scatter them. Within days, every fragment that touches soil will root and become a new plant. Try to kill it, and you propagate it. It's the plant equivalent of a hydra. The more you fight it, the stronger it becomes. And that's why it's still here, growing in every sidewalk crack, every disturbed patch of soil, every place we told it not to grow. Waiting. Why it matters now. Climate change is destabilizing agriculture. Lettuce requires consistent irrigation and cool temperatures. Spinach needs steady moisture. The leafy greens feeding 8 billion people were bred for stability that no longer exists. Purslane was built for chaos. It survives on 250 mm of annual rainfall, half what lettuce needs. It thrives in heat that wilts spinach. It grows in degraded soil where industrial crops fail. And it doesn't just survive stress, it increases nutritional content under stress. Studies show that purslane grown in drought conditions produces more omega-3 fatty acids and antioxidants than well-watered plants. Stress makes it more nutritious. For 100 years, we've spent billions eradicating the plant that could feed us through the crisis we're entering. The answer has been growing in every crack, every disturbed patch of soil, every place we tried to poison it. How to recognize it. Here's what purslane looks like, because you've been stepping on it your entire life. Stems. Thick, succulent, reddish or green, sprawling flat along the ground. Leaves. Small, paddle-shaped, thick and fleshy, grow alternately or in clusters. Flowers. Tiny yellow flowers with 5 petals, open in morning sun. Growth pattern. Forms a circular mat, spreading from a central taproot texture. Smooth, slightly glossy, succulent feel, holds water. Habitat. Sidewalk cracks, disturbed soil, garden edges, empty lots. Lookalikes to avoid. Spotted spurge, has milky sap, purslane doesn't. Prostrate knotweed, has papery sheaths, purslane doesn't. Test. Break a stem. Purslane is smooth inside with no milky sap. It should feel crisp and juicy. How to harvest it. Timing. Harvest in the morning after the dew dries but before midday heat. This is when omega-3 content is highest. Method. Cut the top 2 to 3 inches of stems with scissors. Leave the root and lowest stems intact. The plant will regrow within 2 weeks. You can harvest the same plant 4 to 6 times per season. What to take. Young tender stems and leaves. Best flavor. Avoid older, woody stems. Too tough. Flowers are edible too. What to avoid. Plants growing in contaminated soil. Areas sprayed with herbicides. Wait 6+ months. Roadsides with heavy traffic. Lead contamination. Dog walking areas. Pathogens. How much? 1 plant produces enough for a salad. A square meter of purslane can give you 1 to 2 pounds of greens every 2 weeks all summer. How to eat it raw. Add to salads, lemony, slightly salty flavor. Use instead of lettuce in sandwiches. Blend into smoothies, big omega-3 boost. Cooked. Sauté like spinach, 2 to 3 minutes. Add to soups in the last 5 minutes. Use in omelets, stir-fries, tacos. Greek style with lemon and olive oil. Pickled. Make refrigerator pickles. Lasts months. Mexican escabeche style. Traditional Greek preservation method. Seeds. Tiny black seeds are edible, high in minerals. Collect after the flowers dry. Sprinkle on salads, bread, or grind into flour. Important notes. Purslane contains oxalic acid. Cooking reduces it significantly. People with kidney stones should moderate consumption, same as spinach. Start with small amounts to test tolerance flavor profile. Lemony, slightly salty, crisp texture when raw. Becomes mucilaginous when cooked, like okra, which is perfect for thickening soups. How to grow it. If you want more. The easiest crop you'll ever grow. Starting. Collect seeds from wild plants, free. Or buy once from seed companies, $2 for thousands of seeds. Broadcast seeds on bare soil in spring. Don't bury. They need light to germinate. Growing. Full sun to partial shade. Any soil, literally any. Water occasionally, it prefers neglect. No fertilizer needed. No pest problems. Harvesting. Begins 6 to 8 weeks after germination. Cut and come again method. Harvest weekly all summer. Stops producing after the first frost. Reseeding. Let a few plants flower and go to seed. They'll reseed automatically. You'll have purslane forever. Problem: it's too successful. If you don't want it spreading, grow it in containers or harvest before it flowers. The golden purslane upgrade. There's a cultivated variety called golden purslane, Portulaca oleracea var. Sativa, with larger leaves and upright growth. Same nutrition, easier to harvest, sold at farmers markets for 8 bunch. You can grow it the same way. But honestly, the wild type growing on your sidewalk is free and just as nutritious. The knowledge they couldn't erase. While Americans forgot, immigrant communities remembered. Mexican families never stopped eating verdolagas. Grandmothers still teach children to harvest it, cook it with pork, and add it to salsa verde. Greek families brought glystrida knowledge to America. You'll find it in Greek restaurants and traditional salads, not advertised because Americans wouldn't recognize the name. Middle Eastern communities eat purslane, bakla in Arabic, semizotu in Turkish, as a standard vegetable. Go to a Middle Eastern grocery. It's in the produce section. Chinese medicine practitioners have been prescribing ma xian continuously for 2,000 years. The knowledge never broke. The suppression was incomplete. The knowledge survived in fragments. Passed down in languages, English-speaking gardening books didn't translate. Preserved in cultural enclaves, waiting for the moment when people would need it again. That moment is now. The bigger picture. This isn't just about purslane. This is about a food system that cannot tolerate plants that don't generate profit, that cannot allow vegetables you don't have to buy. That must convince you that free food growing in your driveway is your enemy, because purslane threatens everything. The leafy greens industry, 95B. The omega-3 supplement market, 8.1B. The lawn care industry, 99B. The herbicide industry, 40B. The seed industry, patented genetics. All of them depend on scarcity, on dependence, on annual sales, on your believing that nutrition must be difficult, must be purchased, must come from somewhere else. Purslane is the opposite of all that. It asks for nothing. It gives freely. It survives everything. And there is absolutely nothing they can do to stop it. They made it illegal to sell. It grows anyway. They classified it as noxious. It spreads anyway. They spent billions poisoning it. It survives anyway. They erased the name from books. It grows in every crack anyway. You cannot kill abundance. You can only convince people not to see it. For 100 years, they convinced us. But the plant never left. It was always waiting, growing in every disturbed patch of soil, in every sidewalk crack, in every place we tried to make it lifeless and controlled, waiting for the hands willing to harvest it. What you do now: walk outside, look at the cracks in your sidewalk, the edges of your driveway, the disturbed soil where nothing else grows, that plant you've been stepping on. That's more nutritious than anything in your refrigerator. Learn to recognize it. Stop poisoning it. Let it grow. Harvest the top few inches. Eat it like a salad. Cook it like spinach. Save some seeds. Share them. Teach your children the name they tried to erase. The plant that asks for nothing. Survives everything. Grows freely everywhere. That's purslane. The superfood they turned into a weed. The crop they made illegal, the knowledge they spent billions suppressing, the food that refuses to die. This knowledge was never lost. It was growing under your feet the whole time, waiting for you to remember what it is. If this opened your eyes to something you've been walking past your entire life, subscribe to Garden With You and hit the bell. Every like and share preserves what they tried to erase. The next forbidden food will be revealed soon.